So today I'm going to be dyeing a custom underlay for a damaged flag, and this flag is made of silk and has several areas of major loss. So I'm wanting to dye a piece of new silk the same color as the flag to lay underneath so that those areas aren't as visible. And today I'm dyeing 2 samples, testing out which color might work best, and I've been doing this all week with little to no success, so I'm just hoping that today might be a little better. And the first step to custom dyeing is to calculate the weight of the fabric, the volume of the dye and water needed, as well as some weights of other dyeing products that I'll talk about a little later. And this part can take a while and can get a little hairy, so I always make sure to triple and quadruple check all of my calculations. Next, I put on my lab gear. Can't have any of those dyes getting on my clothes, and put my hair up. Then I'm just putting down some paper towels around the scale to make sure that no pigment gets on the countertop. So right now I am making a 1% stock solution of brown. I already have 2 stock solutions of red, 2 of yellow, and 2 blues, but I want to experiment with a little bit of a muddier color, so in one of the recipes I am going to replace the red with brown dye instead. Now I'm scouring the fabric samples to make sure that they are nice and clean and free of any sizing that make dyeing more difficult. Now to the stove. I warmed up all of the dye solutions a bit and stirred them around to make sure all of the pigment was in solution because I was having a bit of trouble with that last week. So I just wanted to make sure all of the pigments were nice and incorporated in solution. Next, I prepared the water for the dye bath, 127 milliliters per beaker. So here I just have straight up reverse osmosis distilled water. And I'm about to put in Lanaset, which is a liquid 3-product mix produced by dye manufacturers to aid in leveling out the application of the dyes, just so you can get a smooth color as you're dyeing. Make sure that dyes don't split up back into their different hues while in the bath. It incorporates everything a lot more smoothly. And next I measure out Glober salt. So Glober salt is sodium sulfate, and its purpose is to help increase the color yield of the dyeing process by keeping the negative charges of the dyes and the fibers in the fabric from repelling each other. So sometimes people use just regular sodium chloride or table salt, but sodium sulfate is slightly better than sodium chloride because it helps slow the attachment of acid dye to the fiber via the sulfate groups, thus helping get a more even color on the fabric while dyeing, like the Lanaset. After putting in the set and the salt, I check the pH of the solution. We're wanting it to be around 4 or 4.5, but it usually starts out about pH 5 at this point. So I always end up putting in at least 1 drop of acetic acid per beaker, and this time it ended up being 5 per beaker just based on the amount of water that I have in there. Now it's time to put the fabric in the bath for the first time, and I let the fabric sit in the solution for about 5 minutes, letting the silk absorb the solution and be fully drenched so then when it's put back in the dye bath, it can take up the dye a little bit faster because it's already wet. And also, I didn't show this, but in the past I've checked the pH of the dye bath after I remove the silk from it, because sometimes it makes the water just a little more basic again and you need to put some more acetic acid in it. Now for the first dye recipe. This is a modified recipe of something that we've already tried, just with using brown instead of magenta. And what I'm going for is a really interesting greenish blue gray. I'm measuring using a micropipette, which measures in super precise amounts down to 0.1 milliliters. The second recipe I've also tried before, just with different percentages of each color. I'm like moving it slightly more towards yellow rather than blue. this point, I put the fabric back in the baths and the actual dyeing process begins. At this point, I'm watching the thermometer for about an hour and 15 minutes in total, allowing the bath to slowly raise from 49 degrees Celsius to 89 degrees Celsius. And finally, the process is done. It goes a lot faster in fast motion. I let the glass cool for a bit, wash the fabric again, first with tap water and then with distilled water and some detergent as well. And there we have it. The final products weren't exactly what I'm looking for, but I definitely am getting closer, and so next week I will probably try a couple more recipes. Thanks for watching.